I grew up thinking grocery shopping was a peaceful, mildly boring American ritual. You know the type. You push your squeaky cart, grab a pre-washed bag of spinach, maybe wander the aisles for cookies you'll regret later, then politely stand in line. Supermarkets in the US are quiet, organized, air-conditioned, and above all, controlled. Then I moved to the Philippines, and my life changed forever when I encountered my first Palengke. The first thing I noticed was the noise. Oh, the noise. In America, people whisper to each other. Here, in a Filipino Palengke, people yell. Not politely or angrily, but with a kind of musical intensity. Eight, patties, sariwa, sariwa. I realized quickly that eight doesn't just mean older sister here. It means, hey, you. Yes, you. Come buy my fish. Every stall had its own mini sound system of human voices, with the vendors all competing for attention. I wasn't sure if I had entered a market or a concert hall where everyone was simultaneously the lead singer. The smell hit next. In the U.S., if you wander past the seafood aisle, you might detect a faint whiff of tuna. Here, the Palengke assaulted me with a medley of the ocean's finest offerings, combined with the scent of fresh vegetables, ripe mangoes, fried fish, and someone's cooking pancit at the corner. It was so strong that my nostrils staged a tiny protest. I laughed nervously, realizing that smelling the market was part of the experience. I'd expected to see neatly packaged produce under bright fluorescent lights, but instead the vegetables were stacked in crates. Tomatoes with little dents, cucumbers with personality, and greens so fresh I swear I could still hear them crunching. Haggling was a cultural workout. In the US, prices are fixed, and the most negotiation you do is asking, "Do you have a discount for seniors?" Here, I quickly learned that asking, "Makano po?" was just the first step of a dramatic verbal dance. I wanted some shrimp for dinner, and when I asked the price, the vendor smiled and said, 100 pesos per kilo. I tried to nod politely, then mentioned my budget. Suddenly, we were bargaining like ancient warriors. I countered 80, and she laughed like I had suggested something absurd but entertaining. 85, then 90, final price, 88. This went back and forth for 10 minutes, drawing a small crowd who clearly loved the show. I realized shopping here was not about efficiency. It was about performance, and everyone else was part of the audience. The people were incredible. In the US, cashiers and customers barely make eye contact. Here, people smiled at me, asked where I was from, told me which mangoes were the sweetest, and even offered me a sample of dried fish just because I looked curious. It was chaotic but heartwarming. At one point, a grandmotherly vendor grabbed my hand and said, "You eat fish." "You eat fish raw? You try bagoong." And before I knew it, I was tasting shrimp paste with the intensity of someone auditioning for a culinary daredevil reality show. My face probably looked like I had discovered fire for the first time, but everyone laughed and I laughed too. Because honestly, this was more fun than any silent, air-conditioned American supermarket could ever be. Navigating the aisles was another adventure. In the U.S., you can stroll down a perfectly straight corridor of shelves. Here, the aisles were suggestions rather than rules. Baskets of fish sat next to a pile of mangoes, which were dangerously close to a heap of chili peppers, and someone was kneading dough on a wooden table shoved into the corner. Children ran around in mini races, and dogs occasionally walked by like they owned the place. I had to weave through this living tapestry of humanity, animals, and produce, trying not to knock over a basket of salted eggs or anger a vendor who is mid-haggling with a teenager about coconut prices. It felt like playing real-life Frogger while also being part of a musical. At one point, I witnessed a full-on street negotiation that made me question my entire understanding of economics. A man was trying to buy 3 dozen eggs. The vendor said 180 pesos. The man countered 150. Then the vendor insisted on 170, but added a free banana for dramatic flair. The man waved a small fist and yelled, "De pot may discount kazi regular customer ako," which loosely translated to, "I should get a discount because I buy here all the time." The vendor laughed, shook her head, and then added another free banana. It was not about the money, it was about community, performance, and fun. I realized Americans might think haggling is stressful. Here, it was art. I found myself laughing constantly. In the US, grocery shopping can be a mundane task. Here, I was entertained by the theatrics, the smells, the human interactions, and the occasional random chicken clucking from a nearby crate. At one point, someone handed me a mango with a wink and said, "For you, ma'am, best one today." I didn't even know how to respond except to say, "Thank you," while trying not to drool over its perfect yellow hue. Buying vegetables was equally dramatic. A stall had long beans piled like skyscrapers, eggplants stacked like a small army, and tomatoes that looked like they had personality. I tried to pick out a tomato, and the vendor immediately yelled, "Don't pick that one. That's for the mayor's lunch." I froze, unsure if she was joking or serious. Apparently, politics and produce mix freely here. She then picked out 3 tomatoes herself and said, "For you, American lady, make your sinigang nice." I was touched. In America, no one ever picks tomatoes for you unless you hire a personal shopper. I also had to get used to the money. In the US, everything is plastic cards, scanners, beeps. In the Palengke, it was a flurry of bills and coins, and vendors had a dramatic way of counting money: 5, 10, 20, 25, often accompanied by theatrical gestures and a smile. I ended up laughing so hard, I nearly dropped my cash into a basket of shrimp. People around me laughed too, as if I had joined their little comedy show without even trying. By the time I left, my arms were full of bags. My nose had experienced the full scent spectrum of 100 culinary delights, and my brain had learned more about Filipino culture than a semester of college lectures. I realized the Palengke was more than a market. It was a living, breathing community, full of humor, chaos, generosity, and flavor. It was loud, it was messy, it was unpredictable, and I loved every second. Driving back to my apartment, I couldn't help but laugh at how different this was from the sterile aisles of an American supermarket. In the US, shopping is practical, quiet, efficient, and slightly boring. In the Philippines, shopping is an adventure, a performance, a festival, and a full-body experience. I felt alive, exhilarated, slightly sticky from a stray mango juice splash, and overwhelmingly happy. The next day, I returned because, honestly, I couldn't resist. I knew it would be chaotic. I knew I'd bargain over some vegetables and probably get offered free samples again. I knew I would laugh until my cheeks hurt. But I also knew that each visit to the Palengke gave me a story, a memory, and a connection to people I would never have met otherwise. And yes, I may never be able to shop silently in a US supermarket again without feeling, well, bored. Every time I think about it, I giggle. I imagine telling my friends back home, "You think grocery shopping is boring? Let me tell you about the Palengke, where a woman yelled at me over a tomato, a man tried to bribe me with a banana, and someone handed me shrimp paste like it was candy." They would roll their eyes. But I just smiled because the experience was worth every loud, fragrant, chaotic second. And so my Filipino market adventures continued. Each Palengke, each barangay market, each small town stall offered something new. A new voice, a new flavor, a new lesson in patience, humor, and the art of haggling. I laughed, I bought, I tasted, I watched, and I left richer in spirit, if not in cash. The Palengke was more than a shopping trip, it was a Philippine life lesson served with humor and a side of bagoong. By the end of the week, I realized I had a new standard for shopping. America would never be silent again. I compare, laugh, and secretly miss the chaos, the smells, and the endless calls of 8, 8, Sariwa, forever. And honestly, I couldn't wait for my next Palengke adventure. Thank you for joining me on this crazy trip. If you've ever had an experience like this, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories. See you next time.